and gentlemen, I'm Seven, and you're watching GEEKCASTER, everything sci-fi, fantasy, and pop culture commentary. We've got Kipjo up in the house. How you doing?
How you doing, man?
I'm excited. I wanted to get you on this show for a very long time.
Yes.
I'm super excited. Also, there's a lot to talk about on your end.
Yeah.
Let's jump into it. Wait, before you do it, let's go back a little bit. What was your first New York Comic Con?
My first New York Comic Con, oh my gosh, was I think 2012 was my first, and I went actually as a fan.
Okay.
So I was actually geeking, and the funny part about that one was, and I like to bring it up because my mom actually came. She met me there, so she came for a part of. She came because she was curious, and actually had an extra ticket, and somebody couldn't attend, and I was kind of complaining about it. I was like, "Yo, I paid for this ticket," and the tickets are expensive.
Oh yeah.
So she overheard. She was like, "Can I come?" And I was like, "Really? You want to?" And she was like, "Sure." And she took the train up, and she came, and she followed me to Artist Alley, and we had a blast. She had to leave early. I stayed later, but we had a real blast, man.
Now let's fast forward in time. When was the first time you showcased your work at New York Comic Con?
The first time I showcased was 2016, and I started in I was in the back section at that time. If everybody remember the conventions, the hallways were a little bit smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So it was me in the middle of two other independent artists, and I only had 2 books at the time, and I packed it, and I had my little banner and everything.
Right.
And shockingly, I didn't expect it, but I actually sold out my first book that first day. So.
Now,
it was awesome.
The reason why I'm so excited, well, one, I met you at New York Comic Con, and it's been a couple of years now. Just seeing the booth and seeing the booth grow, and I find it fascinating to see, when people, this is where they started. They went as a fan, and then things started growing, and they got that itch. They want to tell these stories. And I think you're a perfect example of that, and I'm so proud of you because let's get a little, give you a little fire, a little bomb on that. I'm so proud of you because every time I see you at New York and NYCC, right, that you're just growing. You're just growing, and like there's 2 books, then there's 4 books, and then so I just thank you for just being you and doing your thing and keeping your eye on the prize. So tell everyone how many books you have right now.
Currently, I believe I have like 12 books. I have about. There's the first EVO. I'm just gonna run it real quick. First EVO Uprising and Genesis is all part of the first series, and then there's the I Have Ra, the spin-off novel, and then there's 2 books in the War of Mortal Gods series that It's like a 4-part story arc that jumps off after the 3rd book in the first.
Mm-hmm.
So in that's 6 books, and then I have 2 miniseries that I work on. One is The Elf and the LARP. There's currently 2 books out for that. That's supposed to be a 5-part series, and then there's Help I'm a Superhero. Currently there are 2 books out for that, and that is a 12-part miniseries. Oh, and then there's my last book, which is that's coming out with an audiobook in December, and that is Divided We Stand. But that's a passion project.
Now, this is interesting because when we first met, the EVO Universe was a lot smaller. It was a universe. It was a universe. Now it's a universe. I mean, look at all the characters behind you and the graphic that you pulled up. You've been working, man. And also you have another, before we jump into nitty gritty, you have some big news that you laid on me that you're working with a new publisher.
So Dreamscape Audio publisher, they actually we were originally with Tantor when we did our audiobooks. And that was a 7-year contract. And our contract was ending, and we were about to go in-house. And then, lo and behold, Dreamscape publishers met us at Comic-Con last year, heard our audiobooks, because now we play them during the convention. And they contacted us, met up with us, and they said they wanted to contract 4 of our audiobooks for, their new Dreamscape lore line. So those books are currently signed with them with brand new narrators, and they're doing very, very well. So, and we're looking to do more projects with them in the future. So, yeah, that's
awesome.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yep.
That's a big jump from just showing up with 2 books.
Yeah,
all the way in the back.
Yes. Yes. It is surreal to be like, I was all the way in the back, and now where they've got, I'm literally looking at Marvel comic stage every time I show up at the convention. It's like so surreal, and it's like, very humbling as well. As you said, remembering from where I was all the way in the back. So yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
When I cover the convention and other conventions too, all right, they're not paying me to keep saying their names, so I won't say it anymore. But I like to interview and talk to the fans.
Yeah.
And the independent creators. We still say, hey, they're releasing a new this and a new that, and in fact, anyone watching this show, you could definitely watch the next show, or next week we're going to be talking about new movies and casting news and just breaking stories. Like, one of the biggest things, they were talking about Denzel being in the new Black Panther, and so there's a lot of stuff like that. But with that being said, I really love to hear people that have an idea, believe in it, invest in it, and they make it, and they go for it. And that's not an easy thing to do. So let's go into what were the challenges up until this point of your success? Like, what were the challenges? Even just creating or coming up with the characters, and anything that you could think of that you'd like to share.
Funny enough, the 2 things that I ran through as a challenge, one would be time, because you only got 24 hours in a day. And I still do. So now I've got 2 jobs, because I still have my 9 to 5 that I do. And then I have this. And so I've had to manage time in order to write and create these stories, and also to get them out within a specific amount of time, because especially to write a good story. And I don't like putting out and I getting feedbacks and fans hitting me up and being like, yo, when the next book is coming out, book's coming out. And I totally get it. And it's like, trying to explain to people that I am like working as much as I can to get the next work out. But I don't want to put out work that they're not going to be happy with, and that I'm not going to be happy with it. And if I'm not happy with it, they're not going to be happy. So it's about sitting down and finding time to write these stories. And the other thing is, I've got so much stories that I want to tell that I can't. That to stay focused on just one series, I'm not going to get all these stories out. And I come to realize after doing these 2 additional mini-series that people are also gravitating. There are other genres that I can tap that people actually like to hear these stories. So it's about creating. That's the first part, is finding the time and creating the schedule to dedicate to each work, and then making sure I'm putting out the best product possible for that.
Well, this is good that you said it that way, because where do you draw the line? Where do you say, wait a minute, I'm spreading my stuff a little too thin. Let me hone in on this and this and this, because I can make this the best it could possibly be. Because I know some creatives that there's a big conflict. They just want to, they're so full of stories, they want to get everything out, but then they don't push fully, some of their stuff. So how do you do that and just kind of manage that?
Well, what I've realized is that if I do, I set like a certain, like for instance, my current series, the first, especially for my More God series, I've cut it off 20 chapters. So it's 20 chapters that I do for each book.
Okay.
and each book dedicate to working on the story there. And then for the the other ones, the Elf and the Larp is only 10 chapters, and How About My Superhero is between 6 or 7 chapters. So even though they're smaller stories,
Mm-hmm.
I can put the best work out and follow people, and also get them out in a reasonable time. Because before, it used to take me, I mean, my first 2 books, and actually it took me like 3 to 4 years to actually finish those books, because you're going through the writing process and the editing process. It's like, it's just not ready yet. It's not ready, and it's not in your gut. It's not ready yet. And
Okay.
then when you know it's ready, and then you probably, it's like people are like, wow, it took you like 3 years to put out.
Right.
But when they get it, they're like, oh my god, this is you know what I'm saying?
It's good.
Like, and the feedback always, it's so good. I just wish you could work faster. And I totally understand it. It's just that you just have to. It's a working process, especially when you're doing it for the first time. You're just playing it by ear at that point. So my current project, just to real quick, is now about a year. It's about a year now between doing all 3 books.
So let me say this. Would you say that is just a sign of the times? Because people growing up took years to do novels, even films. I mean, you hear about, it took me 5 years to write this film. Or even music. Music artists would live their lives, they would do what they need to do, and then 3-4 years later, they have a new album. Do you feel that it's because of the social media, this fast consume, spit out, what's next?
Yes.
And how do you combat that, or you kind of just go with it?
I'm sorry. I go with it a bit, but I have to push back on it, because when you look at certain works that are coming out, I'm sorry, it's some of it's a bit subpar.
Okay.
I find myself, I'm a big hip hop artist, big hip hop head.
Okay.
And I know that, like when I was going back, when I was growing up, and my parents had a certain amount of music, they didn't understand hip hop, and I get that, and I'm at a certain age, so it's a newer generation.
Okay.
However, you can tell that certain people, they're not putting out the best work, because, like you said, they're in this manufacturing process of, we need to get out the content, the next content, the next content, the next content.
Right.
So are you really putting your heart and soul? Because and I've seen it proof, there are songs from way back that younger generations are listening to, and you can tell the effect and the emotions that it have on it. I remember I was watching a video on YouTube. This girl, series ago, was listening to Tupac's "Dear Mama" for the first time, and tears were just pouring through their eyes, because they were like, "Oh my goodness," and everybody's heard "Dear Mama."
Right.
Now, when what I'm saying, it got me a little bit emotional, but to see that years from then,
still relevant,
it affects people and is relevant.
Right.
That says something. That means that in that time when he made that, I don't know how long it took him, he put his emotion to it. Can you say the same with a lot of stuff that's being produced?
No. Well, far more, do they even have anything relevant to say? Like, I had a meeting with a group that is trying to do a lot of community building, and they want to create basically some events, right? And they wanted to have some people perform. And one of the interesting conversations were, should we allow people to curse or not? They had a past event, and some people thought it wasn't appropriate because it was supposed to be a all ages thing, and someone was very passionate. Well, I don't want to censor artists, and like I could pull out of a hat, F the police, that song. But even though there was that word in it, there was something being said. And you still end up at this place of, I guess, kind of, well, do they have something to say that they're standing on for whatever reason, whether it's love, relationships, religion, sex, whatever it is, but besides the colorful words, are you saying something or not?
Yes.
Because sometimes the words make sense. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it got heated, and I get where they were coming from, but I think that, like, as an artist, as a filmmaker, as a musician, we have to push the youngins coming up to be like, keep raising the bar, because if you don't, we're never really passing the baton of excellence. We're kind of just, here's technology, anyone can do it, go do it, and just vomit.
DMX, and I say, is my spirit animal. And anyway, if anybody wants to, anybody that listened to an X album, that man, it's not like he's not one of the dudes that tell you to go F yourself in a heartbeat. He's got one song is just F y'all. I'm not gonna go through that. But X can bring you to tears. There's a song. There's a number of his songs that if you listen to it and you listen to what he's got to say, it'll hit you to the heart. People need to understand, and I think a lot of people need to understand. We grew up I know we're in hip hop. We're talking about hip hop, but hip hop is an explanation as to a lot of stories and what we're doing, but it's just an explanation because I grew up with Public Enemy.
Okay.
We had NWA. We had Uncle Luke.
Okay.
We had
affectionately known as Uncle Luke.
So what I'm saying is we had the political songs, we had the party songs, we had the nasty songs. I grew up with Big Daddy Kane. I had the first cassette he had and whatnot, and you know what I'm saying? I couldn't let my parents hear what he was saying.
Right.
But we had those songs. So when people say, oh, you're an old head, you don't know it. No, we had those. Right. The problem is that that's 90% of what we're hearing on the radio is just one note songs that say majority of nothing.
Right.
And I'm going to be fair about this. I have no doubt. I'm just bringing it as a space. I have no doubt that there's probably a couple of songs on. Example, probably Nicki Minaj or Cardi B or. So I'm just throwing it out there. That probably have something to say. But the fact that mainstream media is manufacturing 95 to percent of their songs that basically say nothing doesn't encourage me to want to listen to the rest of the album. You know what I'm saying? To see what else they have to say.
There's no album. I mean, there is one, allegedly, but there really isn't a focus of a collective body of work. It's like, do we have a single? Yeah. And can we follow up with at least two? If we could get two more, we won. If we get one, we made some money, let's keep it moving. And that's, it's very interesting. But same thing transitioned with people that make comic book characters, how you see them at the convention, they got one hit, one little thing, and then it kind of, it's like a one-trick pony. Like you had one good idea, and that was it. And, it's hard because at the end of the day, even singers, right? The one-hit wonders of singers, they got their one hit. A lot of people don't even have one, right? So,
what kind of, and I see, I'm not saying everybody does this, but one of the things that I do to go back to our side when it comes to comic books and sci-fi, and especially with independent artists. And I see a lot of people, I'm saying this because it started that way, but I see a lot of people straying away from it. A lot of them tend to want to, even though some of the characters don't gravitate that way, they try to mirror what it is in mainstream to try and get noticed.
Thank you. Yes, I see that a lot. Yep.
Need to do that. If I could tell anybody advice, you don't need to do that. Standing out and being as independent as possible and not trying to align yourself with a Marvel or a DC will do you wonders. It was funny. Back to the first time I did a convention, there was a group of guys, and they had like a whole bunch of comic books. And actually, they sold out. But the main pitch was when people were walking by was, "Hey, you like Avengers? You like Avengers? You like X-Men? Well, we got it. Check out our comic books. They're kind of like the Avengers. It's like, but Marvel's is right up. So why can't we just? Why are we? What is so you characters? Well, we could just get the Marvel. You know what I'm saying? The Avengers and the X-Men.
Right.
You know what I mean?
All you got to do is lease the rights and make up your own story and keep it moving. And I find that has been one of the problems I've had, even going in as press.
Yes.
Is that, I'll go in there as the example you just, we're the, just fill in the blank of any ethnicity. We're the such and such Superman. We're the such and such X-Men. Well, I mean, the thing is, by doing it that way, you're playing this political game that really doesn't need to be, like, that's why so many different religions, cultures, so many different types of people love these conventions, because it's a moment to shed away from all that and just go into fantasy land, sci-fi or fantasy land. And when you do that, I get it from a hustle standpoint, but from a creative standpoint, then you technically didn't do anything. You didn't create anything. And then what I've noticed is that, I don't know if you remember, it was more of a conversation a couple of years ago where they were like making a female Thor, and they were making, this and changing the characters. And I feel that that's their way of trying to corner the market, because if 50 people make a female Thor and they're independent and they see that, well, we'll just make a female Thor to compete, to keep it all in-house kind of thing. So I'm hoping anyone that's out there that's creative, just create your own thing. Yeah.
It's because that was called, well, we used to, it's called mantle sharing. And it's, because, and how I got into comic books and how I knew about it was, when it was the Demon in the Bottle series with Iron Man, when Tony Stark was an alcoholic, and James Rhodes had to take over for him for some time, so he had to take the armor, and he was Iron Man for a time, and it was cool. It was a brand new way of telling a story. The problem is, and I go back to it, is there's nothing wrong with mantle sharing. Is the problem with, and what I saw what Marvel was doing and what a lot of people's doing, is you're doing it, but you're not telling a good story. Like, for instance, and I bring this up as always examples, everybody, when Riri Williams, who gets a lot of hate for no reason, she does. She's an amazing, if you, on paper, Michael Bendis, I will give him his props, is an amazing character on paper. You know what I'm saying? Young black lady. I think what was the college? I think it was. It's going to come to me what college. But she created her own armor, and the cool part was Tony showed up at her workshop, was giving her tips as to what she could do.
You're talking about Ironheart, right?
Ironheart, yes. Ironheart. Ironheart. That character, on paper, great character, and then afterwards, they did that abominable Civil War II, which should never have been done. And then next thing you know, Riri Williams is a replacement for Iron Man like that. And she got a whole bunch of hate, and people didn't understand why she was getting the hate. And the thing is, which we need, this is where it comes to telling a good story, because if you knew the character of Iron Man, you knew for a fact there was no way in heck she should have been his replacement so fast. And that has to do with the first Armor Wars. Everybody knows Armor Wars, Spy Master stole his armor. He went berserk trying to get, I think it was one of the, he went so far as to take on the U.S. government. He cut ties with Captain America, and him cut ties over it. He is so protective over his technology
That he's not going to hand it to random college students.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not about people. It's like, well, come on. This is where good storytelling and common sense of anybody who should have gotten it. It should have been James Rose or somebody else. That, you know what I'm saying? Not her.
Right.
Not so fast.
Well, and that's the thing. I think like where, because anyone watching this live, we'll keep going. But anyone watching this on cable, we're going to stop right here. And you'll have to watch the next part next week. If you're seeing this on social media, just click. You just click the next one. It's not that difficult. It really isn't. I mean, now when you see me doing all this, I'm in the studio. I'm pressing buttons. I'm making sure everything is going smooth. But I wanted to bring this up because there's a lot of backlash with Acolyte.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And the script was bad. There was a lot of loopholes. The story, and people were like, no. Da, da, da. Now, mind you, there was a lot of hate before it even came out.
Yes.
Or there was hate. I don't know the degree. I don't know. But put all that aside, just wasn't a good story. There was a lot of things that were, I don't know how much that was the direction or the writing. I think the director did the best he could possibly do. I think the editor did the best he could do. The special effects were good. The fighting scenes were one of the best in the Star Wars universe. But the writing just wasn't there. And sometimes it's not a racial thing. Or a classist thing. Sometimes it's just, can we stay to the source material? Or if we're going to change things, make sure all the little holes are filled. Is that fair?
I think so. I'm going to put a slight because I actually did like. There's parts of the Acolyte I agree I did not like. Mm-hmm. I think there was a lot of holes filled, and maybe if there was another series, it would have filled the holes. But there were certain things that I did like, and people need to understand that all of this took place way before the original. So this is not necessary. This is just another story within about the Jedi Order from way back.
Right.
It's not now whether you like it or not. Now you have the right to say whether you like it or not. You don't have to like it.
Right.
To sit there and be like, well, this changes, what happened in
and it didn't. To be fair, it didn't change anything.
No.
So there really was nothing on that level for anyone to be upset about. I just think that, if you paid attention, it was like, okay, if you're going to do that, then you got to write this. If you're going to do that, you got to write this. That didn't happen. And I think that there's a certain amount of people that like sci-fi and fantasy because of the history, because of the being consistent and putting all the dots together. And I think there's a romance right now between the animation and the series and the movies, how in a weird way it kind of weaves. And I think that if you're going to write for them, you got to be on point because the fans pay attention. All right, so...
True, but...
Oops. All right, so we're going to end right here. And then, again, stay right here. If you're watching on Twitch, just stay there. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. You're watching GEEKCASTER. And hold on there. GEEKCASTER.com. Check us out.